Hello there to all my followers of darkness, shadow scavengers, and villain aficionados. Welcome, bienvenue to one of my good old-fashioned review episodes. I'm your host, Laura Shadows, as always, and here I am to discuss with you guys a proper treat. Ever since it came out on May the 4th, and of course, I'm going to talk about none other than Star Wars: Tales of the Underworld. A show that, just like Tales of the Empire, came out of nowhere. Absolutely out of nowhere. It was never revealed. It was never teased. They simply dropped the trailer out of nowhere, and I was like, "What the fuck? Like we're gonna have another Star Wars Tales edition, and this time it's gonna be about Asajj Ventress and Cad Bane." Count me in. Count me fucking in. Oh my god. I just couldn't wait for May the 4th to come out. And finally, here it is. I got a chance to see it. So here I am, guys, to kind of give you my overall thoughts about Star Wars Tales of the Underworld. Now, just like, Star Wars Tales of the Empire and Tales of the Jedi, it has 6 episodes. The first 3 are about Asajj Ventress, and the second 3 are about Cad Bane. Now, Asajj Ventress basically explores, the overall aftermath of Dark Disciple, basically, after, the very first scene in episode 1, and the last 3 episodes, they explore Cad Bane's origin story to kind of give you an idea, who this character was before he became, this infamous bounty hunter we all know and love ever since he first appeared in the Clone Wars. So without any further ado, let's begin. So first, I'm going to start with Asajj Ventress' arc. Now, basically, as I explained before, it gives you an explanation to, why did she appear in Star Wars: The Bad Batch, when that particular, episode was set, and basically, what happened to her, after the Clone Wars and everything, So, like I mentioned before, the show basically tells you the story about, what happened to Asajj Ventress after the Dark Disciple events and everything, And again, I'm going to try to be as spoiler-free as possible, but I will say this, the way how they delivered that first scene, they fixed a lot of elements that a lot of fans were questioning about, her character and everything, more precisely, how is she still alive and everything, and the way how they did it, I thought it was actually really well executed, absolutely well executed. So with that being said, the last part of Asajj Ventress' story is basically she basically lives a normal life as it's kind of like bouncer to kind of this transport office or something, until one day she meets this force sensitive young Jedi Padawan, and basically she's trying to help him escape the Empire, and try to find this path that was mentioned, to kind of bring him into safety. So outside the first scene, the rest of episode 1 and episode 2 and 3 are all about them working with each other and trying to find this path, to kind of like I said, bring basically him with all other surviving Jedi to safety, basically. And throughout this entire journey, one of the things I love about Asajj Ventress is not just simply the way how she talks about her past, but also at the same time, kind of exploring who she is now, and you can see that her character, even not simply after the Dark Disciple storyline, but also after she came back. Let's put it that way. You can see that she had almost like an ultimate transformation. Her character was given an overall 100% reboot. Basically, the way because you can feel throughout her, you can still feel there's still some old Asajj Ventress inside her. Also, in the same time, you can see that she's trying to try basically create a new leaf in her life. Trying to live her life away from her past, away from the Force and everything else. But of course, when she met the kid, everything changed. And so I really like that addition to Asajj Ventress to kind of explain her past, but at the same time, who she is now. I really, really like that. And one of the things I also love about Asajj Ventress' arc is that the overall relationship between her and the kid. I really, really liked their overall dynamic duo, basically. The way ever since they met each other face to face, all the way till the end. It was absolutely amazing. And also, The like her story is also really action packed. Like there was like one of the things I loved about these 3 episodes when it comes to the action. I really enjoyed her lightsaber duel against like this new Inquisitor, basically that like literally came out of nowhere, who supposedly looks like he was hunting for the kid and everything. Like I really like the little like lightsaber duel moment they had like in her like arc basically. Also, there's another character that appeared in Sash Venture's arc that we haven't seen ever since I think like the Clone Wars. And it was I thought like she was a really nice addition to that to basically to have her in the story and everything. But most of all, and also kind of like also basically in the third episode, which is also real, I really liked kind of like the conversation that she had with like old soldier from like the Separatist Alliance during the Clone Wars and everything. Like that was also a pretty nice addition. Like I said, the main part of her story in her arc is basically her living living a new life, but also at the same time going into confrontation with her past. I really like that, and I love like how basically from every single thing that happened to her, she kind of like she's kind of like learning her lesson. To kind of like there's more to things than what she actually believed when she was like under Count Dooku and everything. Like it was, as a character development, I really liked what they did with her character. I really did. And again, and also one of my favorite moments is that when she, like I said, the relationship between him and the kid, her and the kid, and basically basically the kid showing her that not all Jedi are evil and everything. That there are also good ones and everything. Besides Quinlan Voss and everything. Also, I really like the addition of the Path as well. Because I think that because the Path, I remember it was something that Quinlan Voss actually created, and at the very first time I think I've heard of it was in Obi-Wan Kenobi episode. I think that was like the first time I heard about the Path. And then of course later on was explored in Star Wars: The High Republic lore and everything. But this particular Path, it was really a nice addition to it, as well. They're kind of like a path that would kind of bring the surviving Jedi or Force sensitive people, into safety, basically. I really, so overall, Asajj Ventress's arc, I really enjoyed what I've seen. Again, I could go into much more deeper conversation, but then we would have been here all day. But overall, for what I got, I really liked it. Like I said, from Asajj Ventress's confrontation with the past, also being changed and trying to live a new life, basically learning from her past and everything. Also, like I said, the conversation that she had with the old Separatist Alliance soldier, alongside the relationship between the kid and everything. But the one thing I really liked, again, I came back to the very first scene in episode 1, was the way how they connected the Dark Disciple storyline. I really like that. It's because for me personally, it's very rare today when you have a project, it's like a TV show or a movie. It's very rare today that when they connect even Star Wars books. That's very rare today. And I really like that. The very first time I've seen a connection like that was like in Star Wars, like Thrawn alliances, with like when Thrawn was talking about Vader in the Ahsoka TV show, and now this with the Dark Disciple. It was a really nice addition, absolutely nice addition. So overall, Asajj Ventress arc, pretty good one, and the way how it ended. Honestly, I can even see that being like a start of a Asajj Ventress TV show. And if they decide to do it, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't fucking mind at all, because of what I got and everything. I wouldn't mind at all if they do a Asajj Ventress TV show at all. And with that being said, I'm going to talk about Cad Bane's arc. Oh my god! Now, like I said, Asajj Ventress' story was a continuation. Cad Bane's arc is an 100% origin story. Like it shows you where he comes from, how slowly he became, this like outlaw, this like bounty hunter that we all knew ever since the Clone Wars, and also kind of even shows you what I really love about this arc, this like 3-part episode story, 3-part story, is that it kind of shows you, that there's more to his character than what we, expected. Now, at the end of the day, he was still, don't get me wrong, he's still a scumbag. He's still a villain. But you can still see, but after, for example, after watching this 3-part story, if you're gonna watch like the Clone Wars or Star Wars: The Bad Batch, where Cad Bane appears, I can tell you, you're gonna see Cad Bane from a different perspective. Because like this story, what I really loved about it is explored, like, basically the first episode you have him as a child, the kind of like, living on the streets with a friend of his, being like, both of them being like, orphans and everything, kind of like living from scraps and everything, like, which was really, it was a really odd start, but a welcoming one, and also at the same time, kind of like, seeing kind of like, the beginning of like, Cad Bane, being involved in a life of crime and everything, and also what I really love is also the relationship between him and his friend and everything. That was also really, really great to see actually that Cad Bane actually had someone before he became who he is and everything, and after like, and the way how the first episodes, started, finished and everything, you can kind of, I love the way how you can kind of start to see the turn of like, who Cad Bane is starting to becoming and everything. But also, again, I don't want to go into deep spoilers, but there's a character in Cad Bane's story, and every time when I see this character and Cad Bane talking, it kind of reminds me of Indiana Jones and Indiana Jones and the Templar, like, movie, where basically you have, Indiana Jones's origin story, and basically you have this guy, talking to Indiana Jones, saying like, you lost today, kid, but doesn't mean you have to like it. And then boom, he gives him the hat and everything. Like this, like basically that what reminds me of like when I see Cad Bane and he's like, overall boss slash mentor, basically, who taught him to, who kind of started teaching him, who basically of who he is today. Like that was a really nice touch. That's one thing I just want to say. It was a really nice touch. But also, Cad Bane's story is really heavy. Really heavy, and the way how his story ended in the third episode with that twist, with that revelation in the end, heavy. It was really heavy. But like there's certain, like I'm telling you, especially in the third episode, there's like a revelation that happens at the end of his story that a lot of people, it's gonna blow their minds. It's gonna blow their minds. But overall, I love what I've seen from Cad Bane's story. But also one of the other things I really love is that his story, it really feels like an old Western. Like the first episode when you see Cad Bane as a child, it kind of feels like this one of those like, crime thriller kind of like, storytelling. But the second episode, the third episode, it felt like a good old fashioned Western. This like gunman, this outlaw who's like, basically seeking revenge because of like, his boss was killed and everything, and also the confrontation between him and his old friend who, who basically one of them is a lawman, the other one, is a outlaw. I really love that. And the music, not just simply in Asajj Ventress's story, but even in Cad Bane's story. Like Kevin Kiner and his family. Oh my God, the soundtrack, what they did, especially with Cad Bane's story, feeling it like makes you feel like you're like good old Wild West and everything. Like it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Again, I can go into details, but but I really like the story of Cad Bane. Seriously, if I had to choose between them, I would say I would choose the Cad Bane story. Instead of like Asajj Ventress. Now, don't get me wrong, her story was great, but Cad Bane was even better. Even better. His arc was like way more deeper, darker, and like, even tragic. Like the way, and the way how they told his origin story, absolutely amazing. No complaints about that. And like I said, I really like, that, that they also explored like Cad Bane's like, relationship with like, with his childhood friend, also having him having like a love interest and everything, also his relationship with his mentor slash boss, and kind of like slowly becoming who he is today, the fastest, meanest, nastiest gunslinger in the entire galaxy, basically. It's really everything they did, it's really well done, absolutely well done. Which kind of brings me to the voice cast. I mean, first and foremost, like there's a lot of like smidges of like other like cast members in this one, but I have to talk about, primarily I want to talk about like the voice actress for Asajj Ventress and Curry Burton as Cad Bane. I mean, Those two, after all these, those two like returning those roles, it was absolutely amazing. Especially the voice actress for Sasha Ventures, like she didn't lose a thing, voicing this character, and the way how she and Curry Burton as Cat Bane, the way how they delivered their lines through like serious moments, maybe some funny moments, like tragic or sad moments. Like those two did a remarkable performance when it comes to like voiceover, like as Cat Bane and Such Ventures. Both of them were absolutely amazing. Like I have no complaints for the voice cast, and even the others, like who played like the guy who voiced the kid, or like the voice actor who voiced like Cat Bane's friend or his love interest, and a smidget of others. Like every single member of the voice cast for me were really good. But the top, like the creme de la creme for me, the cherry on top were Sash Ventress and Cat Bane's voice actors. Those two were absolutely amazing. They still nailed their roles just like they did in the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars. Absolutely. No complaints about that. Now, the animation. Oh my God. The animation was fantastic. First and foremost, I was still surprised they're using it, especially after, a certain branch being closed and everything. But the way how they did it, like the from the facial structure to like certain movements, the animation of the entire area of like different towns and territories, fighting movements, like oh my God, the animation was so clean, so pure. Like you can see the changes from like to say from the first season of Clone Wars till now. Like you can see the changes, how much their animation evolved and everything. It was so like the animation, like always, they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. No complaints about that. The overall connections. Now, when it comes to the connections, Cat Bane's origins, like Cat Bane's arc, didn't have too many connections basically to like outside Star Wars. Asajj Ventress, however, they had a lot of connections. Like I mentioned, the Path, the Dark Disciple, also like to Clone Wars and everything. Like and one of the things I love about, like I said, one of the things I love about like a certain certain parts of storytelling is how well they connect certain things. With like brief mentioning to like brief like name droppings and everything like the and then they did the same thing with Asajj Ventress. Like I said, the mentioning of Clone Wars, Count Dooku, the Separatist Alliance, the Dark Disciple storyline, Quinlan Voss, like everything they did was just simply perfect. When it comes to the connectivity, none of it felt like forced, or none of them felt like oh, it's just there. Every single connection had its purpose. And what they did with the Asajj Ventress arc, they completed that purpose. So when it comes to the overall connections, it's really cool. Like always, seeing those, and the way how they're well established. Let's put it that way. It's it's done in a really good way. Really good way. Now, I come to my final thoughts. Overall, Star Wars Tales of the Underworld. It's another great addition to the Star Wars Tales anthology series. Absolutely. I really like the Asajj Ventress story. I love Cat Bane's origin story. The music, the cinematography, the cinematography, the animation, the fights, the overall storytelling of these characters, like for example, continuation of Asajj Ventress's life to like Cat Bane's origin story, the overall all the other characters and everything in this Star Wars Tales of the Underworld story, for me personally, was perfect. Now, if I had to choose between Cat Bane and Asajj Ventress' story, I prefer Cat Bane's story than Asajj Ventress. But still, unlike, for example, Morgan Elsbeth and Barry Sophie from Tales of the Empire, both stories were really well made, really well crafted. So both, for me personally, are equally great. Like none, like in this case, I don't like one more, the other one less. Like they're very close this time. Very close. Which is why if I had to rank like Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Underworld, and Tales of the Empire, well, Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Underworld, it would literally be Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, then Tales of the Underworld, and then Tales of the Empire. That's basically how I would rank it. Like so far, Tales of the Underworld is the second best Star Wars Tales Anthology Series edition so far. No, like like almost everything about it was absolutely great. And with that being said, I'm gonna give I'm gonna give like Tales of the Jedi a nice 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, like I told you, it's way better than Tales of the Empire, way better. It's very close to Tales of the Jedi. Like I said, it's very very close. Like like I said, what they did with the characters and the music and the storytelling and everything, like it deserves an 8.5 out of 10. Absolutely, absolutely. And with that being said, guys, here I am. I'm done with another one. So, as always, rate the video, comment, subscribe, give me all personal thoughts and ideas. If you've seen Star Wars Tales of the Underworld already, give me your personal thoughts and ideas. Which story did you like the most? The Slash Adventures of Cat Bane. What do you think about the animation, the voice cast, the overall Star Wars connections? Like everything about Star Wars Tales of the Underworld in general, just put it in the comment section down below. And as always, stay tuned for more, guys. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, Laura Shadows signing off. Or, of course, as I like to say it, later, fuckers.